Hey there, I'm Avid. Welcome to the audiobook of my original story, Anthrostate vs. Isekai Hero. This is a non-profit fan project made just for fun and shared for free. Before we start, I want to let you know that since I'm not fluent in speaking English yet, the narration is AI generated. I hope you still enjoy the story and the world I've created. Thanks for listening.
Chapter 4: Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Point of view: Marcus Carvalho. This fight is more stressful than I thought. "Stop moving," exclaims the huge rhinoceros woman, trying to impale me on her horn. With a step to the left, I dribble with ease, letting the anthro pass by me like a runaway train.
Pock.
The sharp thud of her falling to the ground causes an explosion of laughter from the audience. This wasn't a fight she wanted, and it certainly wasn't one I wanted either. I think, tired and in a cold sweat. Even with my blessings deactivated, it is difficult to hold myself back from blowing her away with my punch. Blessings. Click to view details. Plus God's blessings, plus OFF, plus elemental blessings, plus OFF, plus mortals' blessings, plus OFF, plus lovers' blessings, plus OFF. Blessings. Next time I'll curse myself or take one of the hydro poisons I've been saving to have a more exciting fight. "Pay attention, you cucaracha cockroach," shouted Bulldozer, standing up. The crowd roared as Bulldozer charged again, her massive frame shaking the ground. I stepped to the side, narrowly avoiding her horn. Cucaracha means cockroach in Spanish. I replied in a tone full of sarcasm. "Fuck that noise," she grunted, preparing to jump. "You shit Mexican." Furious, she jumped forward, trying to grab me. "I'm not Mexican," I replied, giving a naughty smile. As soon as she was close to me, I jumped, causing the armored-skinned giant to pass beneath me. "I am Brazilian," I finished, responding in a tone of false indignation. Shaking her head, she stood up and turned to me. "Huh," she mumbled, confused. "Then you're doing cultural appropriation," accused Bulldozer, pointing her big gray finger in my direction. Fury and hatred boiled inside my stomach to the point that I wanted to activate the blessings of the gods of chaos and death, but I decided to take a deep breath and settle for publicly humiliating her instead of killing or cursing her. "First of all, you made a racist comment less than a minute ago." She cut me off, trying to punch me. But unfortunately for her, I dodged, doing a classic Dark Souls somersault, leaving her confused with the movement. Second, I respect the culture of the Lucadors. Besides them being badass, their aesthetic influenced some of my favorite superheroes from the 1960s onwards. The rhino stared at me with her mouth open, as if she didn't understand what I was saying. Wolverine's first costume is basically that of a Lucador, and Spider-Man was a very similar fighter in origin as well, I explained in a didactic tone, as if I were giving a lesson. Bulldozer's face contorted in brutal fury, her eyes narrowing into dangerous slits. She raised her massive arms, the muscles in her biceps and forearms swollen like steel cables contorting under maximum tension. Her fists clenched, her knuckles turning white from the strength of her grip. The air around her seemed to crackle with her fury. "You are dead meat," she growled, her voice a deep, guttural rumble that echoed through the arena. I watched curiously as her muscles tensed, every fiber of her being focused on the next blow. Her triceps flexed, the skin stretching over the powerful muscles. The veins on her arms stood out against the tight skin, pulsing with the flow of blood. She took a deep breath, her chest expanding, the muscles in her back rippling like a wave. Then, with a deafening roar that shook the very foundations of the arena, she delivered a powerful, crushing blow, aiming straight for my head. Rearweargarb. The force of the blow was immense. The very air vibrated before her fists. The crowd gasped, the anticipation of the impact palpable.
Kapow.
The impact of the blow reverberated through the stadium like thunder. The ground beneath us shook, the concrete giving way by a few centimeters from the force of the blow. Dust and debris exploded into the air, creating a thick cloud that obscured everything. The roar of the crowd was drowned out by the deafening sound, leaving only a resounding silence in its wake. Silence hung heavy in the air as the dust slowly settled, revealing the aftermath of Bulldozer's devastating attack. Her massive arms were still outstretched, her fists firmly planted at the impact site. Too bad for her that I was a few inches away in front of her, untouched, having only taken a small step to avoid her blow. The crowd erupted in screams and applause at a scene that looked like it came out of a shonen manga. Bulldozer's face, on the other hand, was a mask of horror and fear. Her eyes, once filled with rage, now held deep terror. She had thrown everything she had at me, and I had dodged her attacks with an ease that bordered on mockery. Her massive body trembled slightly, the realization of her own vulnerability deepening. "And no, it can't be true," she stuttered, her voice barely above a whisper. Once a confident and brutal fighter, she was now a creature filled with dread. I stood there, my posture relaxed, a small smile playing on my lips. "You're strong, Bulldozer," I said in my calm and steady voice. "But I am beyond strength." The crowd's screams drowned out our conversation for everyone outside the ring. The only ones who heard me were my opponent and the presenter. Bulldozer's breathing came in ragged gasps, her eyes darting around as if searching for escape. Bulldozer turned to run out of the ring but tripped and fell flat on her stomach. The impact made the ground shake. She tried to get up, but her limbs were trembling and uncoordinated. Fear had taken over her body. I took the chance and sat on top of her. I felt her skin, rough and hot beneath me, her muscles tense and trembling. She was frozen, panic evident in her wide eyes. "Please don't hurt me," she whispers, her voice barely audible over the crowd's screams. I stare at her, my face impassive, silence being my only response. Suddenly, the arena's speakers come to life. The announcer's voice echoes throughout the stadium, cutting through the silence. "Ladies and gentlemen, what a fight! What a display of skill and power. But it appears our Bulldozer has met her end tonight." Bulldozer's eyes flick to the side, her attention drawn to the announcer's voice. She doesn't realize when the countdown had begun, too consumed by fear and shock. And the winner, through an impressive display of agility and strategy, is the Dragon Warrior, declares the announcer. The crowd erupts in applause and screams. Bulldozer's body goes limp beneath me, her eyes closing as she accepts defeat. I stand up, moving away from her prostrate form, and raise my hands in victory. The crowd's roar intensifies, their excitement fueling my adrenaline. I look at Bulldozer, her massive form sprawled on the arena floor. She is defeated but alive. I had won without causing damage to her body. Her pride will never be the same, I think, holding back a mocking laugh. The announcer continues, her voice full of enthusiasm. "What a fight! What a night!" she says excitedly, waving her arms towards the crowd. But our challenger doesn't even look tired yet. Let's give another round of applause to our winner. Satisfied with the performance, the crowd continues their applause, echoing throughout the stadium. I take a deep breath, letting the moment invade me. This world is strange, full of anthros and modern technology. At least I'm getting to have some fun, I think, waving back to the crowd. As the applause begins to die down, I reach out to Bulldozer. She looks at me, surprised by my action. She hesitates for a moment before taking my hand, allowing me to help her up. The crowd applauds, appreciating the gesture of sportsmanship. "Good fight," I say, giving an encouraging smile. "If you keep your shit talking down and work more on technique than brute strength, you'll improve a lot." Bulldozer nods, a hint of respect in her eyes. "You are something special, human," she admits, her voice husky but sincere. The announcer's voice interrupts our moment. "And we're going for a short 30-minute break, but stay tuned because we still have our final fight." Break. I question mentally. I think I might take a piss and see if I can find something cold to drink. Point of view, Edith. If you want to see him before the final fight, his dressing room is at the end of the hallway on the left. With Madame Hun's words echoing in my mind, I pushed open the dressing room door. I had to see Marcus, I had to make sure he was okay. But nothing could have prepared me for the scene before me. Emma Marcus. I questioned, Stuttering. Marcus was sitting in an armchair. He had taken off his mask but was still in his trunks, his muscular body exposed, glistening with sweat and oil. Around him were beautiful men, their bodies dressed only in silk loincloths of the most varied colors. Their slender and delicate forms were smeared with oil, shining under the bright lights. They were rubbing Marcus' shoulders, offering him water, and one even held a grape between his fingers, trying to feed Marcus, who kept his mouth shut, scowling furiously. The scene was too exciting for me, making me freeze for a second. Marcus. I managed to speak after calming down. He looked at me, his eyes widening as they met mine. He seemed relieved to see me, as he smiled immediately afterward. Edith, ARGH. He tried to speak, but one of the servants took advantage of his open mouth and shoved the grape he was holding down his throat. Coughing, Marcus managed to spit out the grape, but got up angrily shortly afterward, his face red with rage. Enough, he shouted, startling the servants around him. All the Twinkies in silk thongs, get out now. The servants left the room, some crying like babies, leaving Marcus and me alone. He fell back into his chair, letting out a deep sigh of exhaustion. I approached him cautiously, as I was still shocked by the unusual scene I had just witnessed. Marcus, I asked, whispering, are you well? He looked at me, his green eyes tired but relieved. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just not used to all this, he said, gesturing vaguely around the room. Are all men in this world like this? I hesitated, trying to find the right words. Most of them at least try to be. It's pretty popular with the anthros, I think, I replied with an uncertain tone. But there are some who are more like you. Rougher, cruder, and more direct. Marcus nodded, rubbing his temples. I understand. It's so different from what I'm used to. I approached him, placing my hand over his, feeling a pang of sympathy. I can't imagine how difficult this must be for you, coming from a world so different from ours, after having already gotten used to another. He gave me a small smile. It's been a challenge for sure, but Galbraza was much more difficult for me to adapt to. I returned the smile, feeling a warmth spread through me. When I have time, I'd love to hear more about this magical place you came from, I said excitedly. Marcus looked at me in surprise but gave me a cheerful smile before answering. Surely, if it's somewhere that has red meat and beer, we can have a date. Marcus's words hung in the air, and I stared at him, my heart pounding. Huh. I stammered in astonishment. Date. I stuttered, feeling a blush creep up my cheeks. Before I could gather my thoughts to question his intentions, the door opened. An imposing anthro gorilla walked through the door, catching Marcus' attention. Come on, hottie, she announced with a heavy voice. The fight starts in 10 minutes. Marcus stood up, his expression turning serious. I'm coming, he said, his voice firm and confident. The gorilla nodded and left, the door closing behind her. I watched Marcus as he donned his mask, and my mind raced. Marcus, I began, my voice barely above a whisper. About what you said. He turned to me, his green eyes meeting mine. We'll talk about that later, he said, his tone gentle but firm. Now I need to Tokar o Terror. Point of view, Marcus Carvalho. I entered the dimly lit hallway that led to the ring. The roar of the crowd echoed through the narrow passage, a symphony of anticipation and bloodlust. Reminds me of my early career as a hero at the Colosseum, I muttered to myself. Despite the happy memory, I felt a weight in my heart, remembering my old friends and loves that I left behind in Galbraza. That world could be tough, but it's kind of worth it when you have 7 beautiful wives, I murmured, laughing to drive away the sadness and longing. The roar of the crowd grew louder with each step. I could feel the vibrations of their applause through the soles of my boots. Suddenly, the announcer's voice echoed through the speakers, cutting through the noise like a blade. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event of the evening. The roar of the crowd intensified, a primal beast waiting to be fed. Tonight we witness the birth of a legend, the strongest man in the world capable of going toe-to-toe with anthros. Will the strongest man in the world be a match for the greatest champion to ever step into this ring? In response, the audience just screamed excitedly. You know him. You love him. Please welcome the one and only, the Dragon Warrior. I walked out the door with my heart pounding, energy filling me. The crowd erupted in applause, their energy fueling mine. It took me a moment to take it all in, then I decided to give them a show they wouldn't forget. I took a few steps back, feeling the ground beneath my feet. With a deep breath, I launched myself forward, doing cartwheels and somersaults like a gymnast or circus performer, gaining speed with each step. When I reached the edge of the ring, I jumped into the air, executing a perfect triple somersault. Landing lightly on my feet, I immediately turned back, opened my arms, and flexed my muscles. My mask hid my face, but pride was written in every detail of my posture. I admit I'm acting like a show-off asshole, but the audience loves the show. At least until the announcer cut me off to introduce the opponent. And now, ladies and gentlemen, prepare yourselves for the current undefeated champion. With 50 fights, 50 wins, and 50 knockouts, she is the epitome of strength, speed, and skill. Welcome the one and only, the unstoppable, Yami Kage. The crowd erupted into a frenzy, their cheers reverberating through the arena like a storm. Yami Kage? I muttered in the middle of the ring. That sounds like something a 14-year-old otaku would choose for their nickname. Don't comment, exclaimed the lemming presenter next to me, with the microphone covered so no one else could hear. The arena fell silent as the figure of Yami Kage, a tigress clad in black ninja clothing, slowly walked towards the ring, each step deliberate and threatening. The tension in the air was palpable, like the calm before a storm. Her piercing orange eyes stared into mine with an intensity that could melt steel. She looked powerful and deadly and moved with the grace of a dangerous predator. Gracefully, Yami Kage jumps into the ring. Her landing is inaudible. It was so smooth. So, you are the Dragon Warrior Salma, she said, her voice a low growl that echoed through the arena. Let's see if you live up to your reputation. She is different from the other two I faced. Honey Badger only wanted violence and blood, while Bulldozer was a sadistic bully. Yami, on the other hand, seemed like a real warrior, reminding me of great enemies I had faced in my other life. An idea pops into my mind as a wild smile spreads across my lips. Will you fight me seriously? I asked, curious. Curious about my question, she looks at me with a raised eyebrow but nods positively. Regardless of whether you are human or anthro, you are an honorable warrior who stepped into this arena to give the best of yourself. I will not be disrespectful to you. I will fight with all my strength. And that's why, I said, smiling as I took one of my last doses of hydro poison from my inventory, you will have an honorable fight. Yami and the announcer look surprised at the spontaneous appearance of the bottle, but before they can question me, I drink the poison. Hydro poison detected. With my blessings disabled, I am without protection against the toxin, allowing the poison to spread throughout my body without resistance. Status poisoned. The poison coursed through my veins like liquid fire, burning every nerve and fiber of my being. My vision blurred, and the roar of the crowd disappeared, replaced by a distant hum. What did you do? Yami Kage's voice cuts through the haze of pain, her eyes narrowing in confusion and concern. Are you crazy? I couldn't respond, my jaw clenched tight against the scream that threatened to escape. With a final, desperate surge of willpower, I forced myself to stand, my body shaking with the effort. All class bonuses have been disabled. All stats bonuses have been disabled. All fate bonuses have been disabled. Smiling, I explain what I just did. I'm giving you the fight you deserve, I managed to say, my voice a harsh whisper. I hope I don't regret it. I finished speaking by raising my closed fists, ready to fight. The lemming referee stepped forward, her stern gaze sweeping between the two of us. Fighters, take your positions. Her voice cut through the air, clear and authoritative. I staggered forward, my muscles protesting with every movement. Yami Kage, on the other hand, moved with the grace of a predator, her eyes never leaving mine. Fight! The referee barely finished speaking when Yami Kage was already on top of me, her fist coming straight for my face. I narrowly blocked it, crossing my arms, a whistling air passing between my fists. "You're fast," I grunted, smiling, the pain in my arms making me focus better on the fight. "And you are a fool," she growled irritably. "I saw your other fights. Why did you drink poison to make yourself weak?" she questioned, turning her body. Her kick came fast and strong, but I managed to block it with my forearm and throw it away from my body. The impact made my bones shake with pain. She didn't stop, a succession of punches and kicks coming at me like a storm. I blocked, dodged, each movement a fight against the pain that pulsed through me with each attack that hit my defenses. "You are resilient," she said, a touch of respect in her voice. "And you are relentless," I replied, panting. I was only able to keep up with her due to my vast experience in life and death combat. Her next punch came straight to my stomach. Unable to move, I raised my guard and received the punch directly. The impact reverberated throughout my body, but I managed to seize the momentum of the attack and throw myself back. Surprised by my last move, Yami Kage stopped, analyzing me from afar. "It's time to fight seriously," I murmured, leaving a wide base and bringing my closed fists to my sides. Curious, my opponent raised her eyebrows, examining the more orthodox base than the previous ones I used in this fight. I threw my left leg back, raised my hands open with my right in front. "It can't be," Yami said, surprised by my base. "Do you know Kung Fu?" I responded, smiling with a nod. The tigress, without controlling herself, smiled back and lunged at me. Her movements were a blur of speed and precision. Her fists sliced through the air, each punch and kick a lethal threat. But I was ready, my body responding instinctively. I blocked her first punch with my forearm, without flinching, maintaining my base. Her second punch came soon after, but I was already moving, dodging to the side as her fist passed millimeters from my face. She didn't stop, a succession of kicks and punches coming at me like a storm. I blocked, dodged, parried her every move. Thanks to the correct use of the bases and defenses I was using, the pain was minimal compared to before. In an attempt to break my defenses, Yami roared, turning her body, trying to hit me with a kick. But I moved forward, dodging the kick by 0.5 millimeter, facing my opponent's back. I took advantage of the chance and kicked her in the back, pushing her away. Yami Kage did a roll to disperse the kinetic energy of my attack, finishing the movement by standing away from me, her piercing eyes fixed on me. The crowd roared in approval. "Where did you learn Wing Chun?" she asked, her voice a low growl that cut through the noise of the arena. "I had a good teacher," I replied, a crooked smile tugging at my lips. "He was a master of a luetut of martial arts, including Wing Chun." Yami Kage tilted her head, her eyes never leaving mine. "He must have been quite a master to teach a human to fight like that." I shrugged, feeling a surge of pride. "He was, but I'm also a dedicated student." She nodded, a gleam of respect in her eyes. "Let's see how much you really learned," said the tigress, in a threatening tone, opening her fists. Yami Kage, with her hands open, revealed her white claws shining under the arena lights. The change caught me off guard, but my instinct screamed to keep me on alert. Until now, she had fought with the precision and technique of a martial arts master, each movement calculated and controlled. But now, something primal and wild shone in her eyes. "What are you?" My words died in my throat as Yami jumped like a wild beast. She fell to the ground on all fours, her hands and feet moving with the agility of an apex predator feline. "Shit," I mumbled, my heart pounding in my chest. This was new, something I hadn't expected. Yami Kage advanced, her movements now not only fast but unpredictable. She was no longer fighting like a martial artist, but like a wild beast. With her teeth bared, she let out a guttural growl, echoing throughout the arena. I dodged the first attack, her claws slicing through the air where my head had been seconds before. But she didn't stop, spinning and attacking again, her claws seeking flesh. I blocked with my forearm, feeling the sharp pain as her claws cut into my skin. "Fuck," I growled, blood running down my arm. She didn't respond, just attacked again, her claws seeking my face. I dodged backwards, but she anticipated my movement, her body spinning in the air as she kicked with her hind legs. Twisting my body moved vital organs out of the way, and it hit me in the shoulder, the impact knocking me backward. I fell to the ground, rolling to disperse the force of the blow. I stood up quickly, my body aching but my mind focused, thanks to the pain of the cuts and the smell of my own dripping blood. To my surprise, Yami stopped her attacks to lick the blood from her paws, like a domestic cat playing with its prey. Wing Chun is of no use against someone who has knives instead of nails. In fact, without weapons, shield, or armor, it is impossible for a regular human to face a tiger, I complained, leaving the fighting stance. The wildness in Yami's eyes disappeared for a second, giving way to primal curiosity. Does she want to see what I'm going to do? I questioned myself mentally. Let's see if curiosity kills the cat this time. I thought as a plan formed in my mind. I think I'll try something more national. I closed my eyes, and with a rhythm echoing inside me, I started to clap my hands. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I thought, dictating the rhythm of the claps, a basic 3-beat. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Without understanding what was happening, the audience reacted by remaining silent, their curiosity causing my claps to be heard by everyone. Opening my eyes, I turned to the audience and shouted with all my strength. Let's go, guys. My voice resounded across the arena, clear and steady. Clap with me. At first, only a few onlookers started to follow the rhythm, but in a matter of seconds, all the spectators were clapping. The beat might be simple, but with everyone's input, it became a powerful sound. Luckily for me, Yami Kage reacted as I expected. Out of honor and curiosity, she didn't attack me when I wasn't paying attention. She let me do what I wanted. Feeling the energy of the audience envelop me, I made a small bow in gratitude. Thanks. I shouted happily for everyone to hear. If you don't stop, I promise I'll win. In response, the rhythmic clapping became even more intense. Smiling happily, I threw my left leg back, raising my left arm at the same time, only to then swap my leg and arm in a sway, following the rhythm of the claps. The movement was fluid, natural, as if I were dancing. Staring at me confused, Yami Kage asked out loud, "Why are you dancing?" Laughing, I replied, "I'm not dancing, I'm Gigando Capoeira." Without understanding the answer, the tigress fell back onto all fours, only to charge toward me like a hungry animal. She leaped toward me with teeth and claws bared, as if I were an unsuspecting antelope. "Enopi," I whispered, smiling. Yami landed on the ground where I had been seconds before, her claws digging into the ring floor. With the help of the sway, I took my body to the left with a cartwheel, my body moving with the beat of the audience, a continuous flow that confused the wildness of my opponent. "So?" I questioned happily, my body still swaying nonstop to the rhythm of the claps. Yami growled, turning her body to face me again. Her eyes glittered with a mixture of frustration and determination. She lunged forward again, her claws slicing through the air in a blur of motion. But I was ready, my body moving instinctively, ducking and dodging, each movement flowing into the next. "This is new for you, isn't it?" I asked, a smile playing on my lips as I spun out of her reach. "You never fought anything like this before." She didn't respond, just attacked again, her claws seeking flesh. But I was always one step ahead, my swagger taking me out of her reach. My fluid, dynamic defense was too foreign to her. The audience continued to clap, their energy fueling my spirit, pushing me forward. Yami stopped, panting, her eyes fixed on me. There was a new wariness in her gaze, a hesitation that hadn't been there before. She was destabilized, unsure of how to deal with this new fighting style. In other words, time to attack. With one impulse, I threw my body forward, executing a series of cartwheels, somersaults, and pirouettes that took me straight toward her. The audience roared in approval, their clapping intensifying. Yami tried to move, but my movements, flowing like water, made it impossible to predict. Yami tried to block my approach with what felt like a punch, only for me to spin in front of her and kick her in the thigh. "Damn it," complained the tigress, getting on her knees. Retaliating, she tried to cut me with a claw while I was still on the ground, but I threw my body back in a sequence of somersaults, getting out of her way, my body moving with the music of the audience. "And now, the big finale," I whispered, a wide smile spreading across my lips. With an impulse, I threw my body upward. While in the air, I made a feint, looking like I was going to fly. As soon as she responded by raising her guard, I rotated my body forward, falling into a roll next to her. The audience held its breath, their palms pausing for a brief moment. In the middle of the silence, I jumped up from the ground and kicked my opponent in the face. My foot hit Yamikaga's face with all the strength and momentum of my jump. The impact was devastating, a boom that echoed throughout the arena, heard by the entire silenced crowd. I felt the shock reverberate through my leg, up my spine, every muscle and bone absorbing the force of the blow. Yamikaga was thrown backward and a few inches upward, only to then fall like a rag doll. POF. Her body hit the ground with a dull thud, raising a cloud of dust. The arena, which had once been vibrant with the sound of clapping, was now silent, all eyes fixed on the fallen figure of the tigress. With my opponent down, I tried to recover, breathing heavily and with my body in pain, every muscle screaming in protest, but adrenaline coursed through my veins, keeping me standing. I looked at Yamikaga, her motionless form on the ground, and felt a wave of relief and exhaustion. The silence was broken by the sound of hurried footsteps. The referee, the stern-looking lemming, rushed to the center of the ring, his eyes alternating between Yamikaga and me. He knelt down next to the tigress, checking her vitals. "Is she?" My voice was hoarse, worried that I'd gone too far. The referee looked up, his eyes meeting mine. "She's alive," the referee said, leaving me relieved. "But she may need medical attention." I nodded, feeling the weight of the words. The crowd began to murmur, the sound growing like a wave. I looked at the audience, their faces a mix of shock and awe. The referee stood up, her stern gaze fixed on me as she grabbed my arm and lifted it into the air. "The great champion of the night, proving that he is the strongest man in the world," announced the lemming, raising my hand. "The dragon warrior." The crowd began to applaud, the sound building like a storm. I turned to them, raising my fists in the air, a tired but determined smile on my lips. Feeling the pain in my muscles, bones, and some cuts in my flesh, I decided to activate my blessings. Hydra poison detected. Hydra poison neutralized. With the Hydra venom neutralized, I felt my wounds begin to close, and the muscle pain disappeared. I quickly went to the dressing room, hoping to take a shower and change my clothes, but to my surprise, I was greeted by the anthro gorilla from before, who asked me to accompany her. The bitch didn't even let me change my clothes. I thought, frustrated. The gorilla guided me through the labyrinthine corridors, its heavy footsteps echoing against the stone walls. I followed behind her without complaining, my muscles no longer in pain, but still with dried blood and sweat covering my skin, and still wearing the boots, green trunks, luchador mask, and nothing else. Finally, we arrived at the garden where it all began. The tea table was set as before, the scent of jasmine and green tea filling the air, but my system and instinct didn't detect anyone hiding like before. Madame Huan sat, her smile too wide for someone who had just lost a bet. Beside her, Edith, her eyes red and moist, terror written all over her face. "Edith, what happened?" I asked, my voice hoarse with worry. She didn't respond, just looked at Madame Huan, her hand shaking slightly. The old tigress Anthro turned to me, her eyes shining with an almost manic joy. The great dragon warrior honors us with his presence." Her voice was sweet, polished, but there was a strange tone that made me uneasy. "I must say that your fights were more than magnificent, and your victory, a triumphant spectacle. I dare say that no empress of the ancient kingdoms has had the pleasure of witnessing anything similar." Even with her verbose praise, The tigress couldn't distract me from what I most wanted to know now. Why are you so happy? I questioned, curious. Madame Huan laughed in response, a melodious sound that seemed out of place in the tension of the moment. My dear, any mother would be happy on her daughter's engagement day. Her words hung in the air. Confused by her response, I looked at Edith, who was still shaken, and then back at Madame Huan, whose smile didn't waver. Engagement. I repeated, the words sounding strange in my mouth. What are you talking about? Madame Huan stood up, her presence imposing despite her age. You triumphed in the 3 fights, and as promised, I will grant everything that was promised to you, the tigress commented, taking a sip from her cup. The gorilla placed 3 folders of papers on the table. Before I could question her, she continued talking. In these folders, you will find the contact for the sale of gold, the documents you requested from me, and proof that Miss Edith's debts have been paid off. I widened my eyes, shocked at the speed at which she had accomplished all of this. How far does the power and influence of this mafia bitch go? I thought, feeling slightly intimidated. And of course, my most prized possession, she declared, with a tone full of solemnity. The flaming prism, my beloved fire opal gem, Sherhupa. I don't believe it, I murmured in surprise. My daughter, but I think you know her as Yamikaga. You know what? I declared, approaching the tigress drinking tea. I don't like being manipulated. The tone of my statement carried a palpable threat. Madame Huan just raised a curious eyebrow at my actions, while her gorilla bodyguard, who had accompanied me to the place, didn't seem so complacent. Listen here, you stupid human, said the gorilla, placing her hand on my shoulder. I think it's good you argh. Before she could finish her threat, I grabbed her hand and twisted her arm, making the simian howl in agony. Let go of her, foolish boy, the old tigress growled without getting up. Irritated, I turned to her. Why should I obey you? I questioned, looking into her orange eyes. Do you think I'm afraid of you? In response, the old tigress smiled, as if expecting my question. You have no records, you don't have an identity, you have no family, you have resources that appear to be magical on account of how incredible they are, and you are extremely powerful in body, mind, and soul, the tigress stated as if it were nothing more. I would be a fool to think you're afraid of me, but, she said, looking at Edith with a voracious smile. The tigress licked her lips slowly, facing the anthro rabbit, making me let go of the gorilla and stick between them. The people you captivate have jobs, families, legacies, and other weaknesses that I can exploit, said the tigress, giving a guttural laugh from the back of her throat. Something dark bubbled inside me, something that fed my emotions in a vile way. If you touch her, I swear I will destroy everything you have built and cared about in your life. I began, my tone drenched with icy fury. And I will make you watch without arms, without legs, and without pupils so you don't miss anything. It's been a while since I let this side of me come out, but to my surprise, the tigress responded with a proud smile. Perfect, she exclaimed, standing up. I've never been so satisfied in my entire life. The lady slowly walked toward me with open arms. Not understanding what was happening, she hugged me. The strength of a monster and the heart of a warrior, the old woman said, hugging me emotionally. Not only do I promise to do you no harm, but whatever you need from now on, come speak directly to me, my son. The tone in which she called me son was disturbingly affectionate. Right? I commented, feeling strange. How about we talk more about this another day? The tigress let me go and looked me in the eyes, still emotional. You're right, it's been a long day for you, my son, and Hoopa needs to recover from her fight too, explained the madam, sitting at the table once again. I quickly picked Edith up and said goodbye. Beleza Demervalufi, I said in Portuguese without realizing, leaving the room, carrying the bunny in my arms. After running for a few minutes, Edith recovered from her stupor and started kicking in my arms. Marcus, let me go, she complained, giving me the most adorable punches I'd seen in all 3 of my lives. I can walk. Like this is faster, I responded, not letting go of her. I know I'm dirty and sweaty, but please hold on. With my request, she stops kicking and plants her face on my abdomen. Good girl, I thought, pleased with her cooperation. Sniff, sniff. Is it me, or is she smelling me? Smelled the rabbit as if she was in some kind of trance. Jesus, I mentally exclaimed. The girl looks like a Wall Street broker in a pile of white powder. Ea, she sighed, softening her body. I need to distract her quickly. So, where are we going to eat? Luckily, my question broke her trance, making Edith blush and look away in embarrassment. You wanted a place with meat and beer, right? Questioned the rabbit being carried. It's a little late now. I think only the Hooters around here is open and have all that. I braked immediately and put the rabbit down. You guys have Hooters here? The rabbit nodded her head, surprised by my interest. A chance to get to know the varied species of this world up close and see what they look like in tops and shorts. Can we go? I asked excitedly. Of course, it's 2 blocks from the laundromat. With Edith's instructions engraved in my mind, I changed my clothes using my inventory. Even though I still stink, clean clothes make me look more presentable. As soon as we left the underground and the laundry room, I marched toward the promised land. From afar, I saw some skinny human girls in front of the place, with that type of body like a Lolita character from an anime. They were waving at anthro girls who were passing by and seemed to ignore couples and groups with more men than women. That's weird, I muttered, confused. Why do they ignore customers? Most men don't like this type of establishment, said Edith next to me. When we got close enough to read the sign, I understood why. Son of a dashed. Welcome to Femboy Hooters, exclaimed the happy and effeminate voice of the host. Table for 2? Shit. I mumbled in frustration. Chapter 5, Femboy Hooters. Point of view, Marcus Carvalho. With no other establishment serving good meat or cold beer at this hour in this area, I accepted my fate and went into the Femboy Hooters. The buzz of the place hit me like a wall. Anthros of all types crowded the tables, their laughter and conversations blending into a constant hum of TVs all over the place. Human attendants, all men in very short shorts and tight tops with exposed midriffs, glided between the tables, carrying trays of drinks and food. The air was filled with the smell of fried food and cheap perfume. Edith and I sat at a corner table, away from the loudest noise. She looked as distracted as I felt, her wide, nervous eyes taking in everything around her. The difference is that she was fascinated, trying to absorb everything with her eyes, while I wanted to absorb as little as possible. In a few seconds, a blonde waiter approached. His shorts are shorter than my fight with Honey Badger. He had a wide smile and bright eyes, clearly interested in more than just our orders. Good evening. Welcome to Hooters. What can I get you today? His voice was as lively as it was effeminate, almost humming. Edith ordered something quickly, her words barely audible over the noise of the place. Even though I was depressed, I was still hungry, so I decided to place my order. Your biggest serving of ribs, spicy chicken wings, and the biggest glass of cold beer in the house. We have a free refill offer with your order of ribs, warned the cheerful Twinkie. Perfect. I responded with the first good news I heard in this place. The waiter quickly wrote everything down, but before leaving he approached me, smiling curiously. Wow, you're super strong, man. The tone, in addition to being effeminate, was also childish, making my stomach boil in disgust. How did you get such big muscles? Is there any special secret? I sighed, feeling the weight of the situation irritate me even more. Just a lot of training and eating protein. The waiter whistled, impressed. Wow, I guess that's why you eat so much, right? Can I grab your bicep? I growled, pissed at the Twinkie for thinking that was going to happen. Well, if you need anything, just call, he stuttered, scared. My name is Looney. He walked away, leaving me to my dark thoughts. I looked around, seeing the other femboy waiters moving between the tables, flirting and laughing with the anthros. It was a stark contrast to what I expected. Shit, I mumbled, laying my head on the table. My behavior caught the attention of Edith, who placed a comforting hand on my arm. Marcus, she called with a voice full of concern. Are you okay? Her delicate and cute hand was a relief in the middle of this nightmarish house. I forced a smile, trying to hide the whirlwind of emotions inside me. "I'm just really frustrated," I replied, looking around once again. "This place is very different from what I expected." She blinked her eyes and turned her head like a curious, wild rabbit. "And what did you expect?" Edith asked. Frustration combined with hunger made me lose my speech filter, and I ended up not mincing my words and started ranting. I expected to see a lot of waitresses with big tits in tight tops and juicy asses in short shorts. I commented in a louder tone than I had been speaking so far. The relief that the outburst gave me ended up distracting me from the fact that the clientele and employees were starting to pay attention to our conversation. "Marcus, I think you'd better keep your voice down." Edith tried to give me advice, but I cut her off in the middle of my monologue. Seeing the kind of woman capable of giving a nice Glock 9000. "Wow!" exclaims Edith, embarrassed. "You know, a bitch who bounces on my dick so hard that it makes me walk around crooked for a week," I exclaimed with a nostalgic sigh. This is what I expected to see. Edith pulled her long ears down, hiding her face. "What's the matter?" I questioned the rabbit's behavior, finding it strange. Looking around, I noticed that the entire restaurant was silent, and for a moment, the only sound was the distant hum of traffic outside. Every anthro was looking my way, and I could feel the weight of their gazes. But how did they hear me? I questioned in surprise. Edith leaned in with her ears still covering part of her face, whispering softly. "Marcus, anthros have better hearing than humans," explained the little white rabbit. "They heard everything." I was paralyzed, the reality of the situation hitting me like a punch in the stomach. I had just unleashed a series of pervert and heat nonsense in the middle of a Hooters. That's just what I need right now, I thought, annoyed. Getting kicked out of this femboy hellhole without eating. The silence stretched for another moment, and then something unexpected happened. An anthro on the other side stood up, a large woman with lioness features, began to clap. The sound echoed throughout the hall, and soon, other anthros joined her. In a matter of seconds, the entire restaurant, including some men, was applauding. "Oh my gosh, he is so brave," exclaimed a waiter next to the bar. "UD lad. An honest male, that's new." A mare grumbles, almost neighing. "The kind of guy you don't show to your mama, am I right?" A hippo jokes while sitting in two chairs, one for each cheek. What I slipped off my chair. Comments a sheep. I stood there, stunned, as the sound of applause filled the room. Edith's jaw dropped. The little bunny was as surprised as I was. Her big, round eyes reflected the confusion I felt. What I slipped off my chair. Comments a sheep. I sigh awkwardly at the comments. "Oh shit," I murmured, irritated. "I must look like a TikTok 304. For the love of goddess, Marcus," she complained, massaging a headache on her forehead. "Nothing makes sense with you around." In response, I gave an awkward laugh, but before I could apologize, I was cut off by a big, hairy hand that landed on my shoulder. "Hey there, cutie," said a deep and familiar female voice. I turned around slowly. The heavy hand still resting on my shoulder gave me a slight squeeze, trying to show dominance. My eyes found a tall, muscular anthro hyena dressed like a biker. Her black and red jacket had several chains hanging from it, which rattled with every movement. She stared at me with a predatory smile, her eyes shining with a mixture of amusement and desire. "So, the bunny isn't up to the task, huh?" Her voice was husky, almost a growl, but there was a playful tone to it. "My name is Drika. I think you'd better remember it because you'll be shouting it all night." I felt Edith shrink, her presence diminishing even more in front of the imposing anthro. The hyena noticed her discomfort and let out a throaty laugh. "Relax, bunny. I just want to play with the cutie. I promise to return him in one piece." The anthro hyena commented, licking her lips. "At most he'll have some bite marks." Drika laughed loudly, accompanied by other hyenas that were behind her. Despite her wet dog hair and smell, she has a great body, but if she wasn't such an asshole, I wouldn't mind clapping those cheeks in the bathroom, I thought, looking at her. But while I was planning the most efficient way to stick Draika's arm up her own ass, something else unexpected happened. Leave him alone. Her voice was firm, but with a slight tremor. He's not interested in you. Why you, BBB bitch? Edith, the little bunny I knew as shy and insecure, had stood in front of me. Her body was shaking, but there was a determination in her eyes that I had never seen before. The hyena turned to Edith, with a sneer on her face. And who's going to make me, bunny? You? The little white rabbit hesitated, paralyzed for a moment. I don't even judge her for that. Her opponent is much bigger and stronger. These conditions, coupled with the fact that Edith has zero combat training, make this a lost cause. But once again, she surprises me. Edith didn't back down. Instead, she stepped forward, her eyes shining with courage. I will. Her voice gained strength, the tremor disappearing. I know you're bigger and stronger, but that doesn't give you the right to harass someone who clearly wants nothing to do with you. The hyena laughed again, but this time there was a note of concern hidden in the laugh. You're a brave little bitch, bunny. Draika glanced at me, then back at Edith. But do you really think you can stop me? Edith did not hesitate and responded firmly. I can try. Edith exclaimed, crossing her arms in a defiant tone. The silence in the place complemented the tense atmosphere between the two, who seemed ready to start a fight. And as interesting as it may be to see women fighting over me, I still have my priorities. It's like my wise grandfather said, good food is more important than pussy. Listen here, you Lion King villain on steroids, I said, starting to get up. I don't like hitting women, but I make exceptions for bitches like you. As I stand, I fix my eyes on the weirdly familiar hyena. As she faced me head-on, her arrogant smile began to disappear. Her eyes dilated, and I could see recognition dawning in them. Her body began to shake, the chains on her jacket rattling with the movement. And the hairs on the back of her neck stood up in attention. She looked like a wild animal that had just noticed its predator's presence. No. Draika murmured in fear. No, are you that knight? Finally understanding who the hyena was, I stepped forward, my body blocking Edith from the hyena's view. So your name is Draika? I spoke in a humorous tone with a touch of threat. I warned you that if I saw you or your friends harassing innocent people, I wouldn't be so merciful. I punctuate the sentence with a big, wild smile. Her friends fled through the door, abandoning their leader, who was still paralyzed. Draika swallowed, her body still shaking. I could see the effort she was making to control her fear, her eyes wide and fixed on mine. She opened her mouth, trying to speak, but the words came out in a confused stutter. I didn't know it was you. Her voice, once so arrogant, now trembled in pure terror. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. She stopped, taking a deep breath, trying to compose herself. Her eyes left mine for a moment, as if searching for the right words. When she looked at me again, there was a gleam of desperation in them. I swear, I didn't know. Her voice took on a pleading tone. I was just joking, I didn't want to cause trouble. As soon as I took a step forward, the hyena yelped like a cornered animal, and she wet her pants. Draika trembled, her eyes wide and filled with fear. The smell of urine filled the air, and I couldn't help but feel a pang of pity. But pity was not enough to let this situation pass. I pulled an item from my inventory, the condemned shackle, a magical item I had used more times than I care to remember. The shackle glowed blue as I closed it around Draika's arm. She screamed, more in fear than in pain, and tried to pull away, but the shackle was already securely fastened. I could feel the magic pulsing through her, binding her to me. What is this? She stuttered, her eyes fixed on the shackle. Your third chance, I replied in a cold tone. Now get out of here. The hyena ran off, leaving the hooters silent in its absence. The sound of the chains on her jacket echoed through the room until it finally disappeared, leaving only the distant hum of traffic outside. I looked around, worried about what I had just done. Will the people here be afraid of me now? I questioned myself internally. But to my surprise, the silence didn't last long. First, it was a human at the next table who stood up, his eyes shining with something I couldn't identify. He began to clap, a solitary sound that echoed throughout the room. Then an anthro rat on the other side stood up with her human companion, also clapping. Little by little, anthros and humans began to stand up, clapping their hands. I stood there, stunned, as the sound of applause filled the room. It was so strange to feel embarrassed with such a small audience applauding me, when I had just been applauded in a large arena. I gave an awkward wave, sitting down again. Heat rose to my face, and I tried to hide the discomfort with a forced smile. Edith, still standing, looked at me with a mixture of admiration and tenderness. "Marcus, you're amazing." Her voice was low, but I could feel the sincerity in every word. Before I could respond, Looney, the femboy waiter, appeared at my side, a tray full of food and drinks in his hands. "Here you go, sir." He placed the dishes on the table with impressive speed, his movements agile and precise. "I brought your ribs, spicy wings, and your beer." The smell of food invaded my senses, making me forget all the shame I had felt. But before I could take the first piece, Looney leaned in halfway to my food, his eyes shining with curiosity. "Sir, are you some kind of superhero?" His voice was an excited whisper, as if he were sharing a secret. I've never seen anyone take on a hyena like that. She was all, "Oh no, don't hurt me, Mr. Human," and you were all, "You'll never hurt anyone again," like super awesome. A vein of irritation appeared on my forehead, and I turned to Edith, who quickly understood that if I interacted with this Twinkie, I was going to fuck him in a way he wouldn't like. "Look, Marcus is really tired and hungry, so," he dashed. Before the rabbit finished, the waiter understood the message. "Oh wow, I'm really sorry. I'm such a fool getting in the way, right?" He scored by giving himself an anime punch in the head. "Enjoy." When he finally left, I turned to Edith and whispered, "Thanks."
Point of view, Edith.
I finally found something more incredible than the power and confidence of Marcus Carvalho, the hero from another world. His appetite.
Chomp.
Munch.
Nah. No.
He looked like a shark in a feeding frenzy, or one of those action anime protagonists. "This is really good," he says, finishing eating the ribs. Junk food is cool once in a while, but nothing beats meat and cold beer. Marcus had already piled his third plate of ribs and chicken wings before my eyes. "Good thing he has the money to pay," I murmured in relief.
Loin.
Marcus shouts, drawing the attention of our waiter. Another helping of each and more beer. "Okie doke, Daddy," the smiling waiter replied, arriving with another large mug of beer. "Humph." Marcus snorted, a vein of anger jumping across his forehead. Looney noticed that her special attention made Marcus angry and uncomfortable, something that Looney seemed to really appreciate, which is why whenever he comes to the table, the femboy waiter always teases Marcus. "Don't call me that, or I'll break your ass," Marcus threatened. "Don't threaten me with a good time," Looney said in a needy tone while sticking out his butt. When the waiter bounces away, I turn to the pile of bones that the hero had left. I don't understand how he manages to eat so much and look so good. I was so curious that the question escaped my lips without me realizing it. "Do you always eat like this?" First, Marcus raises his hand towards me with his index finger outstretched, asking for a moment while he drains the large mug of beer that elephant anthros usually use. "Only when I'm hungry and I haven't eaten good meat for a long time," Marcus responds, pushing away the plate of bones while he waits for more. "What about you, Edith? Are you going to eat just that?" I looked at my plate, a green salad with fresh carrots and tomatoes. Compared to Marcus's banquet, it seemed so empty. But I couldn't help it. It was what I liked. Even though I know Marcus is a good person, I'm afraid to answer him. Because carnivores and omnivores always make fun of my typical herbivorous diet. Although anthro rabbits can eat meat, unlike wild rabbits, I responded hesitantly. But we still prefer plant-based products. Marcus raised an eyebrow, genuine curiosity dawning in his eyes. "Really? And derivative products like ice cream?" and plant-based products made with animal fat, like potato chips made with lard. I sighed in relief at the hero's questions. I always forget that he's not from here. That's why he asks these types of questions. He's just a curious boy. "Are you crazy?" screamed a primal part in the back of my mind as I stared at Marcus' defined chest. That's a man. Any derivatives such as dairy and gelatin can be harmful if consumed in large quantities, I responded, trying to push away the lustful thoughts and focus on the conversation. "I'm not sure about your example of fries, but I imagine that in a small amount it wouldn't hurt." "What about alcohol?" Marcus asked, offering a full mug brought by Looney. "Just like humans," I responded, muttering. I picked up the mug as I stared at the golden liquid swaying inside it. I'm not a beer fan, but I didn't want to be rude either. Marcus looks at me with such an honest smile on his face that I don't want to disappoint him. I took a sip, the cold liquid running down my throat, leaving a bitter taste in my mouth. I tried not to grimace, but it was difficult. Marcus laughed, a deep, genuine sound that made my heart race. "Don't like it?" he asked, still laughing. I placed the mug on the table, pushing it away. "Not my kind of drink," I admitted, feeling the heat rise to my face. Marcus picked up the mug and took a generous sip, as if to prove that there was nothing wrong with the drink. "Indirect kiss," shouted my primal side. "He really wants us."
Quick.
"Jump on his crotch." Or, "Do you want to die a virgin?" "Each one with their own taste," said the hero, placing the mug back on the table. "But if you don't like beer, what do you like to drink?" I thought for a moment, trying to remember a drink I really liked. "I like sweet juices," I finally responded. "And tea." Marcus smiled, a smile that lit up his face. "I hope our kits and hummies have his smile," said my primal side. Bad brain. I reprimand my primal side. "This is not the right time." "You're right." My primal side agreed. "For now, let's worry about fitting that smile into our dash. How about a sweet drink?" Marcus asked, bringing me back from my thoughts. "Sweet drink?" I asked curiously. Before I could protest, he was already calling out to Looney. The waiter appeared almost instantly, as if waiting for an opportunity to approach Marcus again. "What can I do for you, Daddy?" he asked, with a mischievous smile. Marcus ignored the nickname, but I couldn't help but notice the slight blush on his cheeks. "Bring Edith a drink that tastes sweet," Marcus said to the waiter next to him. Looney clapped her hands, her eyes shining with excitement. "I'll be right back, darlings." With one leap, he disappeared toward the bar to talk to an anthro mare bartender. Marcus laughed, shaking his head, before turning his attention to me. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" I asked hesitantly. Marcus shrugged, but responded by relaxing in his chair. "If something goes wrong, I'll protect you," he ended by pointing his thumb at his own chest. The statement takes me by surprise, causing me to freeze and respond with a confused mumble. "Huh." Lowering his head, Marcus avoids my gaze and focuses on his mug. "It's not my first time arriving in another world." The hero begins to speak in a tone that is as nostalgic as it is melancholic. After the shock and excitement of being in a new world wears off, fear and loneliness begin to take over. Trying to comfort him, I place my hand over Marcus's. He lifts his head and, for a moment, looks at me with a confused expression, but then he breathes a sigh of relief and gives me a smile. "The good thing is that now I know what to value while I'm here," says Marcus, recovering his posture from before. "And what would that be?" I ask, sitting on the edge of the chair. "As much as sex, treasures, adventure, food, and drink are cool and all, those who care about us are what make life worth living," he responds by laughing with his chest puffed out. "Those who care about us," I repeated, murmuring. A thought that is somehow simple, but infinitely true. "And that's why I want to thank you for everything you've done for me, Edith." "To thank?" I questioned, raising my ears in surprise. "But I didn't do anything big. I was just paying you back for saving my life that night." In response, Marcus shook his head negatively. "You didn't have to follow me into the heart of the city's Chinese mafia," Marcus said, pointing his finger at me. "And even though I'm the most powerful thing in this world, you still care about my well-being." The last statement makes me feel like a moron. Marcus spent the whole night fighting anthros and negotiating with the mafia like it was no big deal, and the whole time I was scared for his safety and not mine. I lowered my head in dismay, realizing how stupid I was for having stressed so much about Marcus' safety. If I had at least half a brain, I wouldn't have worried so much about the hero, who must have led armies in battle and killed dragons. For that, I am grateful to you, Edith, he says, taking me by surprise. Huh, I murmured, raising my head and looking at the human. Knowing that someone here cares about me, despite my powers, brings peace to my heart. Marcus responds, putting the beer mug down and holding my hand with both of his. Their hands are so big and warm. Even though they are rough and firm, I can feel the care and affection he is when holding me. That's why I swear to you, he says, looking at me with the same intensity as when he was fighting in the arena. As long as I'm in this world, nothing and no one will harm you. I froze still as my body reacted by going out of control. My cheeks turned so red that not even my white hair could hide it. My mind is flooded with 1,000 thoughts per second, trying to process the situation, while my heart races at a speed 3 times faster than normal. The only part of me that works is my primal side, trying to influence my actions.
Male.
Breed me. No. Despite not taking action, I agree with my primal side in the back of my mind. Marcus' words warmed my heart, a goofy smile forming on my lips. I always feel so safe and comfortable around him, like nothing can get to me while he's by my side. Plus, there are the primal desires, that uncontrollable attraction I feel for him when I look at his body. It's something I've never experienced before, a mixture of protection and desire that leaves me completely disoriented. I opened my mouth to finally express my feelings, but I was interrupted by Looney, who arrived with a colorful green drink in his hand. Here you go, Miss Bunny, Looney said, placing the glass of green liquid in front of me with a flourish. A sweet drink, especially for you. I looked at the glass, the green liquid shining under the restaurant lights. It was decorated with ice cubes, lemon slices, and a small umbrella. Go on, try it, Looney insisted, pushing the glass closer to me. I hesitated for a moment, but curiosity and the desire not to disappoint Marcus won out. I picked up the glass and took a sip. Did you like it? Marcus asked, eager for my answer. I liked it, I responded, still enjoying the taste of the drink in my mouth. There's something like black licorice and herbs in there with the alcohol, but I can't put my finger on it. Just relax and drink slowly, dashed. But before Marcus could finish his warning, I downed the glass in a single gulp. What the hell, Edith? The hero exclaimed worriedly. Without understanding his exaggerated reaction, I swallowed the delicious drink. The taste was strange. I felt lemon and herbs in the mix, but there was also something else, a feeling of warmth that began to spread through my body. You weren't supposed to drink it all at once, you crazy bunny, Marcus warned, sitting next to me. I nod, feeling the heat rise to my face and my body soften as it becomes more difficult to maintain my balance while sitting down. It is all good, I say, followed with a chuckle. Hi. Marcus continued to look at me worriedly, while Looney seemed curious about my reactions.
Wow.
Now that's a party gal, Looney commented. I've never seen anyone drink an absinthe frappe so quickly. Absinthe, Marcus roared angrily, taking the glass from my hand to smell it. That's right, Daddy, Looney said, making a V for victory. And I made it extra strong for my new BFFs. Marcus stood up so quickly that his chair fell back, the noise echoing throughout the restaurant. All eyes turned to us, but he didn't seem to notice or care. His face was red with anger, his eyes glowing with an intensity one had never seen before. Check, he demanded, his voice low and dangerous. Looney, who until then had been smiling, turned pale. But, Daddy, she began, her voice shaking.
Now,
Marcus repeated in roar. Marcus quickly paid the bill with a card that was in one of the folders the tigress had given him and pulled me onto his lap.
Thee,
I exclaimed happily when he hugged me to his muscular chest. Worried about me, Marcus looked at me with those big green eyes. Are you okay? He asked in a caring tone that made my heart skip a beat. I'm great, I responded, rubbing my face against his beefy chest. You're so strong and warm. You're like heated marble. With my answer, Marcus smiled in relief. I'll take you home, Marcus commented, carrying me out of Hooters. At least it doesn't get worse. Hugh, fuck, Marcus complained. I like that shirt. After Marcus runs into an alley, my vision becomes blurred with orange light that takes over us, and I feel my body floating in an infinite void.
I hope you enjoyed my work. If you'd like more, check out the links in the video description. Goodbye for now.